Good morning. It's Ladina Boo again from Stockton, Missouri. Jared Dietz is joining us again today because we've been trying to get his testimony all the way out, but we've missed a portion about his time in prison. And so he said that was a very important part of the transformation that he's had in his life. And so I wanted to give him the opportunity to come in and talk about that with us. So, how long were you in prison?
Oh, just various times. I would say probably about 2.5 years altogether
Mhm.
over the
You
length of
get a lot of those 120-day shock treatments or so.
only one of those, thankfully.
You know, I know people who've gone in there and had to do the 120-day shock two or three times before it finally took.
It really depends on how your mindset when you go in there, how long you're gonna, of course, how long you want to stay there, and how long you want to, keep going through the cycle.
Do you want to work the program and get back on your feet, or do you just want to do your time and go back and start all over again?
Or go in with the same attitude and the same thing and get nothing out of it and come out and go right back in because you're just in the same old mud.
So, why don't you tell us a little bit about your time in prison and what that was like? I know my own son and a couple of my stepsons actually have been in prison on that 120-day shock. And, my son called me and said, Mom, you need to start praying for me more because he says, I am here in hell and I don't want to go back.
Oh, absolutely. And it does start with prayer. So I think the important thing to start on is everybody knows that I was homeless, living in the drug addiction, and I had all these problems. And living under those streets literally causes well, for me, I would at first I took it kind of as like a joke almost. It was kind of like a catch line, yeah, pray for me thing, and I really wasn't uh, per se a believer because I haven't found God then. It was more of a, oh yeah, go ahead, pray for me. You know kind of almost came like a catch line for me, and it was like, yeah. And actually had one of these guys out of I cannot remember his name, but he was out of one of the churches. He'd come by whenever he'd be praying in the morning. God would speak to him or something, and not every day, but he would speak to him when he obviously knew I needed help, and so he'd come by and drop off like $15, a little bit of food and stuff, and things like that, and he'd pray for me, and then of course I started kind of using that more of that angle of God to make money on the streets,
Right.
and it and that's really where I saw that was kind of the beginning process, and you don't see that because when you're not a believer, because you don't realize the impact you're actually having on what you're doing, and um, I just felt like that that was right where that was that beginning process, and I started being like, oh sure, pray for me, and let's try to help change my situation with prayer and things, and I just kind of took it almost as a joke, and then eventually I ended up getting to the point where, of course, I was jumping in and out of prison, and a few of those times I was jumping in prison, it really wasn't sticking.
Right.
Nothing was happening. It was just, yeah, go in, do the process, go out. You don't learn nothing. You're not
You just fall back into the same
the
pattern
same
again.
pattern. And jail becomes a place of seed. So for me, at least, when you kind of break down in your head what's happening, and I started looking at this thing different. Now I can look back on it and say, well, that was really all those seeds that were planted from other people about praying for me to get my life changed and those things, that was the seed. That was what God used to take me up and out of there. So, like a like if you plant a garden, you expect fruit out of your garden. You expect to receive what you planted. So a lot of these people were planting these prayers that my life would change, that I'd come around to, you know, whatever the at least come out of my addiction, come out of my problems, uh, come out of my own mess, I guess you could say, get out of my muck, just getting out of that process. And absolutely, the prison became that seed where all that power of prayer and the seed hit. And when I actually got into the point where I went in for my shock, my 120 shock, that was what stuck.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that as a true conversion by then, because I had hit the point where I got tired of the process and the doors and doing the same stuff over and over again, and um, just life itself, everything just hit, like, I guess you could say, hit the bottom of the barrel.
Right. Yeah, I know my son, at one point, he got to the point where he's like, I really don't like the fact that the police know me by name. When they
Oh
see you
yeah,
on the street
they
and they
know
can call
you.
you by name and
Oh,
so forth. It's like, I didn't want that in life, Mom.
yeah, and they know your vehicle you drive, and they know what color and what you look like. They know all your little things, and of course they know what to chase you for. That's the bad part. They know what to chase you for.
Yeah, and they know who your friends are. So,
Yeah,
you can all get in the same mess at the same time. So,
yeah. So um, that so then it became a point of doing something different, which means you have to change your mindset. You really do. You gotta be open to letting God and life, uh, like, God really just leads you out of those things. And for me, that was just learning who God was and what He was about. So the 120 shock was my wake up call, where I was able to sit down and say, well, okay, since I already hit the bottom of the barrel, I could start looking at this God thing and start taking it seriously. Well, like, what do I have to lose? I mean, at the worst case, I don't end up in a worse position. I mean, so it was just
you're
take a
pretty,
leap of faith.
yeah, you were pretty well down there. There was no place
Oh
else to
yeah,
go but up.
nowhere to go but up. So, um, as I told before in my testimony, God spoke to me that one day where I got picked up, from the raid at the drug house. And the important part about that is that I was willing to submit to a different process,
Right.
something that I wasn't used to, doing these things that are not familiar. Jumping into a territory where you just you've never been before. Not only does that take like a certain amount of faith, but a certain amount of willingness to try something different. Just to, you know, we tried everything else before, so I mean, what's it going to hurt you to try, something you never tried before? And for me, that worked out so good, and I can't look back on my life without giving credit to God for, you know, He's the whole reason that I got out of that, and letting those prayers be answered was the key, and Him working in my life is how, of course, I came out of everything that was bad. Was just that whole entire process came down because of God. And when I hit the 120 and I started actually going into um, do my time, it was at first it was kind of like that same old process in your head. Well, yeah, I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing the same process, and I know exactly everything to expect, and what not to expect, and all the bad people that end up in there, and and the bad. I guess you could say the bad environment, because when you hit prison, it's the mentality and the way most people act are they really reflect, I guess you could say, the what's the word I'm looking for? The um, carnal mind
Hmm.
is where you can really is really where prison comes down to, is a carnal mind. Is everybody is so fleshly.
Did you
Just
find a lot of violence while you were in prison?
Yeah, quite a bit. That's what I was just really kind of explaining there. Carnality, in the sense that I'm speaking about, it becomes where it's shark on shark. You're going to be the shark or you're going to be the bait,
Hmm.
and there's a level of violence in that place that, I mean, one wrong thing and you're going to have to defend yourself, or you're going to get whooped by someone. So
Right.
it truly is a place of, like I said, a carnal place where you're putting on your the worst side of you, basically, and it comes out, and you either get ate up, or you defend yourself, and you have to be um, very aware of what's happening in that place, because it's almost always, certainly, you're going to find, you find the uh, fights from, I mean, anything. If you owe a person, something off your food tray or something, and you don't give it to them, that's a fight right there.
Hmm.
If you're found to be a liar or anything like that, you can fight over that too. Uh, the odd thing here is, I kind of want to highlight this, is the odd thing is in jail, the you're held to a honor code that's completely different. And what's kind of weird about prison is they have such a high demand that you be a honorable, good person, but you're living a carnal, fleshly life. So they kind of counter each other, because you've got this almost, hate person that is just full of rage, hate, and everything else, and all these carnal, fleshly things. But yet they hold you to such a high standard of, in almost every area. I mean, you have to, you got to keep your, and this is not only does the prison expect this, like the jail guards and the staff, but they actually don't. They'll monitor it, but they don't. They don't enforce it as much as like like the actual cellmates and the people in your group that you're living around.
Hmm.
Like, things you have to keep a clean room. You have standards all over the place. You got to shower every day, or at least every other day. Um, you you have to have such a standard. Like, you can't, any area can't fall down, or you don't even have to wait for the staff to take action. The people in the prison will actually hold you to this standard, and make you do something. Or if you don't, you run the risk of somebody punching you out or something. There's things like that happen all the time. So you have this standard that's set by there's a separation. There's a standard set by the people you're in prison with, and then there's a standard set by the jail and the
Right.
staff, and there's a complete separation.
Hmm.
So one expects one thing and one expects the other things, and most time they kind of contradict each other. But in not in the regard to like your cleanliness, your how your room is kept, and your area that your cell, um, things like your honor code and the stuff that you live and believe by. Um, these things play an important role, and they're separate from the entire process. Like the staff doesn't even like they're aware of it, but they don't
They
you
don't
know they
intervene in
don't
that.
intervene, and it's a whole separate thing. So there's a whole division, and if oftentimes if you get out of line, that there's always somebody appointed in that place who, and it's not even staff, it's somebody, what they call the big, like the biggest shark is where I found them, is like the toughest person in the prison, is, or the most, who's ever risen to the top, is the one who sets the standard and kind of enforces the rule code, and
Hmm.
and again, it's separate from the whole entire jail system. So um, they're kind of, this is how it is or else.
Yeah.
And so you learn to follow the hierarchy as well. There becomes a hierarchy of who is who in that place, and your reputation means more to your reputation means more than kind of anything else, because your reputation will literally make or break you. You become either um, like a supporting role, like you'll be a part of that process where you fit in well and you're accepted, and these other prisoners will lift you up and help take care of you, or they'll tear you down and take everything you have or send you to the hospital or whatever it is. It's all kind of based off the your own honor system. If you mess up too many times and do something, you become the target.
Right.
And once you're a target, you're going to be took out. You're eliminated. And I've seen so many times where somebody will do something, like even sometimes the smallest thing, and the hierarchy will cause somebody above to say, all right, well, he's out of here. And oftentimes they'll give you a choice to either uh, to request it that you transfer out of like whatever A block to C block or D block or whatever. They'll give you a chance usually to transfer, or they'll force you out. And
Yeah.
so they force you out by, of course, just beating you up and as many times as it takes until the guard will just shift you anyway,
Right.
or they'll or um, I've also had times where you become a target because, like, you have sex offenders too. Had one of those guys come in and he got targeted. Like, I mean, boom, right away. This guy goes, well, he knew the guys because of the process. He was like, well, that guy raped so and so that used to be. This is who that person was to me, and then of course there's a price put on his head.
Right.
And then once you get a price put on your head, you're a walking, you're done.
Yeah.
And
Walking Dead man right
yeah,
there.
basically. And so the funny thing about this is my roommate was the one that actually carried out that one. So my roommate at the time, or cellmate, as you'd say, he was looking to, of course, for a way to make some money for tobacco and other things that we could
Right.
have in there. And so it just happened to work out that this guy came back from there's a had raped somebody, and the guy that was like right outside our um, he lived right outside our cell. There was like another single cell like an open area, because it wasn't like behind the doors or anything. He lived inside the pod,
Mm-hmm.
and it was just like just a one per or no two people. It had a bottom and a top, and it was just a single bed that was sitting right next on our block there, and he was the one that put out the they call it the hit, and so he paid my roommate a bunch of stuff to, of course, go in and beat the guy up. And so there's here's an important thing: when you're in jail, there's always opportunity. Some people get the mindset, they think that because you're locked behind a door that nobody can harm you.
Right.
That's just completely false.
Yeah. That that's
That's
way out of the
way
realm
false.
of truth.
Yeah,
Right.
that's out in La La Land. I mean, you're not paying attention to the fact that oftentimes the doors will unlock, and I mean, you get, even though they're controlled based off of time and a process depending on what's happening, as certain doors will unlock, and most doors will stay closed or whatever, but there always comes a point where they're gonna have to unlock your door.
Right.
And as soon as they unlock your door, you're at risk.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've made yourself a target in that jail, you're gonna get took out. And so
Jail is a place where you want to stay really small and invisible, isn't it?
no, I would say jail is the place you want to be liked.
Uh-huh.
You go there, when you get there, you want to be accepted, you want to be liked, you want to be in the hierarchy, in the sense that you have a, as you were saying, you become invisible, but you become a good invisible. You
Right.
do not want to become a target. As soon as you become a target, you're going to get took out.
Mm-hmm.
You're guaranteed you're going to get took out. And so, just like this guy who raped this woman, he came back. He didn't make it 24 hours. He didn't even make it past the very next morning. It was done.
Yeah.
As soon as he came back and they knew he was coming back, I mean, price got put on his head, hey. And that's, again, comes to the honor system in the prison, is if you say, I'll pay you this to do this,
Mm-hmm.
you better pay, or so there becomes that, again, that honor system that holds each person to their thing. And so this guy put such a high price on it. My roommate was like, oh man, there's my opportunity. He went in that next cell, and boom, ABC happened, and that dude got bounced out of there, and he got tore up. I mean, my roommate stuck it to him, and he came back having done his end of the bargain. And of course, naturally, the guy out there that put the hit on him, well, of course, he took care of his end, true to his word. The very next, yeah, they call it canteen. The very next canteen he got to order, he ordered all the stuff that was owed for the debt.
Uh-huh.
So he paid his debt. My roommate brought in a whole bunch of food, tobacco, stuff like that, and so that's that whole process. Is you make yourself such an easy target, and and you can really become such an easy target. You come back, and one thing they don't like, and they'll bounce you.
Mm-hmm.
You can either go willingly, or they can force you out. Either way, you're gone. Once they've decided you're gone, you're gone.
Most sex offenders don't last very long.
They really don't. That's why they try to hide it. So that's what that guy tried to do. He tried to come back, and every sex offender wants to hide it, because the funny thing about the prison is that's the one thing everybody hates.
Right.
Everybody hates it. Sex. It don't matter what you did. If there were sex in there, you're done.
Right.
You're bounced out that door faster than you can say boo. Yeah. And so that guy came back, got hit, got nailed, and again, I talk about that process where those doors will open. Right. It don't matter how much that prison tries to keep you locked down. There's a point for an opportunity.
Right.
And it does. And anybody that's been in that prison, been in a prison, knows usually the general times and the general, it changes based off which one you go to, because they have a different process, a different code. Like it's all the same the same general aspect, but sometimes the process of like when the doors open and how they open. Like, there's different lunch times. It's all set up different per prison, but you can start to get, you know, whatever prison you're at, you get a habitual habit of knowing when things are going to happen.
Right.
And so somebody will say, okay, well, this is going to happen at 10 a.m. or whatever. There's your opportunity. As soon as it happens, it's on. And that's that whole thing is also you learn to keep your mouth shut in jail too, because they'll close it real quick too. So if you become what they call a double agent, where you're pulling things and you're getting from like you're getting information from the inside and you're providing it to the officers over in the that work in the prison. Oftentimes the prison will you know give you little side benefits or treat you a little bit better than they do the rest of the group, and you can become a target that way too. And sometimes that can cause a lot of havoc where people will give the information out, and then all of a sudden you're back in the pod, and somebody will hear, well, so and so, and they'll try to weed out who did this or who did that and try to get to the bottom of whoever is giving this information up. And often, I had that happen quite a few times where somebody was supplying information and there becomes like an interrogation code. Somebody or multiple people from the actual, in prison will come and interrogate you and see whether or not they believe you.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a whole interesting hierarchy that, I mean, there's so many different standards that just a wrong thing can just set off a whole chain reaction. And either you do the right thing and you can coast through jail, or you're going to do the wrong thing and you become a target and you're bounced out. And some people don't even make it there, like medically. I can remember quite a few times where some people have came back into the pod and just medical conditions or things, suicide. I mean, had quite a few of those incidents where people continually will try to take their life and they get bounced out. And I mean, there's just all sorts of crazy things that can happen. A lot of things happen back there that doesn't get reported. So
Yeah, that's what it was my understanding of that too. There's a lot of violence, a lot of drug usage, a lot of alcohol usage, and so forth in prison that most people aren't even aware of.
oh, it's definitely in there. And I would say and nowadays it's became harder to become to get the alcohol, to get the drugs are the same. I mean, there's been an ability to crack down on that, but those things are still available,
Right.
especially if you got money. But they have got harder to bring it in there, because one thing that evolved while I was in prison is they started doing more of a crackdown on, because they used to like do cell inspections and random inspections, and they used to do these things. I mean, no prisoner, no jailer wants to go through and do an inspection. They want to relax. They
Right.
want to coast through their time as a jail staff. They don't want to work hard. They don't want to do anything. There becomes this laziness about them. But then so there's actually kind of two aspects. Either you're the lazy one, you're the one who just does is the bare minimum, or you're the one who aspires to rise up in ranks, and that's the one you got to watch out for, because that's the guy that's going to come through and do random inspections like every day.
Mm-hmm.
And he becomes the one who and this is a whole process that shifted in between my time of staying in jail, where instead of it being about a laziness and just, yeah, I'm just going to do the bare minimum, where I never even had an inspection. And then there becomes this in between the times I was going in and out of jail, when I hit the 120, and it just happened while I was in there. The prison started changing a lot of the aspects of what they're doing, and all of a sudden there was inspections. Like, I mean, one per week was not out of the question. You could likely expect at least one per week, if
Mhm.
not one every day or every other day. So then the staff started doing so many inspections that it was like, how can you ever get time to build up the stuff that you needed to make something that you're not supposed to have,
Right.
when there's so many inspections that they just take anything that you do manage to come upon?
Right.
And then there was kind of a changing of the guard. All of a sudden it was like, well, there's so many inspections, you just never had what you needed to make whatever you're trying to make. And so, I mean, all these things started getting weeded out. The weapons kind of got more found. The things that, uh, people making alcohol, um, whatever, all these things started getting found kind of a lot more easier, and it was getting harder to hide these things because there's just so many inspections. And so, really, it's a good thing from the perspective of, it gives you opportunity to change your mindset, change what you're doing. But for those that, of course, would like those things, it does hurt you because they take it away. There's and then it was like, became a point where you just had the bare minimum stuff that you're allowed.
Mm-hmm.
And it frustrates those people who are looking for things, that they want something, and then it becomes like, well, now you're prevented from getting it. And these things kind of became a daily battle. You're fighting the daily guard of, you're fighting the inspections, you're fighting the own prisoners. There was so many fights in there, nasty ones. I mean, the probably the most brutal one I remember was between basically the two toughest guys in the prison in that block, went head to head. And they started a fight in the showers. That's one of the weaknesses. Showers are always a weakness, because that's a place where things can happen, and unless a guard happens to wander back there, he's not likely to even discover there's even a fight going on,
Mm-hmm.
because there's no cameras allowed, obviously, back in shower stalls. There are
And
places where you shower.
people may not have any pockets, but they could still hide things to hurt you with.
Well,
In the shower.
your fist becomes your weapon that you
Mm-hmm.
use. And so this particular fight that I happened to witness, two of the toughest guys in the prison in that block, they went head to head and they started fighting. And I mean, the shower wall was sprayed with blood. There was blood all over the floor. And these guys don't hit light. These guys hit so hard that the entire area shook when they
Mm-hmm.
when they're fighting. And so, and the amounts of blood, I mean, just ridiculous amounts of blood. I mean, you couldn't look anywhere without seeing the blood in that shower. I mean, the whole thing was just blood. And and it was very violent. I mean, within a few seconds there was blood all over the wall.
Mm-hmm.
And so that fight ended real quickly. Those and these are those kind of things that you face. And you can become a target so quickly. I even became a target once. This guy tried to extort me, and so it ended up kind of backfiring. And so he tried to get me to, where they try to get you to pay so that they don't basically hurt you. And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's like, not so much. I don't have anything anyway. So Then they're like, well, I've already said it, so I have to commit, and they try to, and they try to keep. You have to keep your word, or you become a target. So eventually, they just ended up switching me out of the pod, and it was like, you know, so you end up in these situations, and they can happen anywhere. I don't remember what prison it was. I had a brief visit at the prison in Mount Vernon. I think it's called Mount Vernon, here in Missouri. And there was this, again, the hierarchy. The guy that was highest up was, I think his name was Joker or something like that. He was tagged Joker. He was running this prison, and he was running the prison behind the scene.
Right.
And this one guy, of course, we have TVs, and this one guy was watching this program, and he went up and of course Joker, I think is, and he this guy came up and changed the program, and that was all it took. Without asking the head honcho,
Mm-hmm.
the guy immediately attacked him and straight put a whipping down on this guy, sent him to the hospital, all because he switched the channel without asking the higher up. So
Yeah, I've heard a few stories like that with people over the years where it's like, no, you don't change a TV station, you don't change somebody's
you don't
radio.
you don't touch. In fact, there's actually like a hierarchy, like of a sense where if you want to change the channel, you actually have to like inform the whole pod, hey, does anybody have any objections if I change it to this or that?
Hmm.
And if you don't do that, you can get a whooping put on you, and you can be put out of that. And it's so quick. You can so quickly get bounced. They call it bouncing. They can bounce you out of that pod so fast, like your head will spin. You won't even notice that you've been bounced. You're out. And but the and honestly, I hope that if anything I've had an impact on is I want people to see that prison is not only a dangerous place, but it's also a place where you can transform your life. It's a place to start over,
Yeah,
and that's all
there's
how you
lots of
view it.
ministry groups that go into the prisons
Yeah,
and
there's
provide Bible
many
studies
you
and
take,
everything like that.
and there's resources. There's places you can go. There's places you can change your life if you stop and try something new.
Right. You know,
Allow yourself something new, and again, it's such a dangerous place, but as long as you don't do something stupid like making yourself a target, go in, keep your word, make sure you learn what the rules are and obey the rules, more importantly, and not just the jail rules, but the rules of like the
prison
prisoner
hierarchy.
rules. if
Yeah.
you if you obey the rules, you oftentimes you're not going to become a target.
Right.
It's when you set yourself out and do something to make yourself a target. Now, that's the thing, you can also improve your life too, so there's nothing to stop you from pursuing a degree, or you know uh, coming to God, pick up that Bible and see where God can take you.
Right.
Those things are very real, and even the prisoners won't attack you if you pick up a Bible.
Hmm.
um, so I mean, there's opportunity to change your life. You just have to take advantage of what there is provided to transform your life, and that's where my whole life transformed, was because I was in prison. And I
Yeah.
said I want to try something new, and I picked up that Bible, and well, here I am. I mean, I still
Yeah.
struggle every day, just like every other person, but God's brought me through everything. So
And contrary to what any movies may portray as a experience in prison or jail, it's not fun.
no, it's not.
It's not fun. It's a dangerous place,
Very
and
dangerous. You can.
if you're doing something out there illegal, and cops are watching you, whatever the case may be, find a way out. Lift yourself up. Nobody else is going to do it for you.
Exactly.
You got to turn to the Lord. You've got to find somebody and listen to you,
Exactly.
and just bring yourself up beyond that. Because when you bring yourself up, and commit yourself to the Lord and decide that you're going to make a big change in your life, you can do it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's where my transformation happened. It started in prison. And sometimes you have to go to jail in order just to transform your life. And that it's not a bad thing.
Nope. I've known 4 or 5 people that went to prison, and when they came out, their life was changed. So
Absolutely. It's all what you make of it. So if you want to go in with the same attitude, you're going to come out the same person, or you can go in with a new attitude and come out a transformed person. It's all up to you.
that's correct. Anyway, we've run out of time again this morning. So I thank you for joining us today, and I hope you join us again next week. Thank you so much for being here.